You are standing in a garden in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, watching an Amish woman walk between rows of tomatoes with a spray bottle. The leaves are clean, the fruit is perfect. Not a single aphid, not a Japanese beetle, not a hornworm in sight. I ask her what she sprays. She holds up the bottle and says one word: pepper. I spent 30 years buying pesticides every spring. 7-Dust for beetles, neem oil for aphids, BT spray for caterpillars, spending $40 to $60 per season on chemicals I did not want to use but thought I had to. I thought that was just how gardening worked. It is not how gardening works. There is a compound, a single molecule, that exists in every pepper plant on Earth, that has been protecting those plants from insects for millions of years, that costs $3 per pound at any grocery store, and that the pesticide industry has spent 70 years making sure you never think to use. What you are about to learn is the exact system the Amish have used for over a century to keep their gardens free of destructive insects without buying a single commercial pesticide. This is not about organic gardening as a lifestyle choice. This is about a chemical defense mechanism that works in minutes, costs almost nothing, and that an entire industry depends on you never discovering. The active compound is capsaicin, the same molecule that makes peppers hot. When capsaicin contacts the soft tissues of an insect, it triggers the same pain receptors that make your mouth burn when you eat a jalapeno. But insects do not have mouths. They have respiratory systems that run along their entire body. When capsaicin lands on an aphid or a beetle larva, it does not just irritate the surface. It enters through the spiracles, the tiny breathing holes that line an insect's abdomen, and once inside, it causes immediate and overwhelming sensory overload. The insect cannot breathe, it cannot feed, and within minutes it leaves. Not because the capsaicin killed it, because the capsaicin made that plant so unbearable to be near that survival instinct overrides hunger. The insect walks away and does not come back. This is not a poison, this is a deterrent. And the difference matters because poisons kill everything. Beneficial insects, pollinators, predators that eat the pests you are trying to eliminate. Capsaicin does not kill bees, it does not harm ladybugs, it does not touch earthworms. It only affects the insects with chewing mouthparts or piercing mouthparts that damage your plants. And it does that without leaving residue, without requiring a waiting period before harvest, and without any of the health warnings that cover every bottle of commercial pesticides sold in America. The science behind this has been documented since 1999, when researchers at the University of California published findings in the Journal of Economic Entomology, confirming that capsaicin-based sprays reduced aphid populations by 87% within 48 hours of application. That study has been cited over 200 times in academic literature. It has never been cited once in a pesticide marketing campaign. And the reason for that is not complicated. You cannot patent capsaicin. It is a naturally occurring alkaloid that has existed in pepper plants for 20 million years. There is no proprietary formulation, no trade secret, no intellectual property to protect. What cannot be patented cannot generate licensing revenue, and what cannot generate licensing revenue does not get advertised. So the knowledge that a $3 bag of cayenne pepper does the same job as a $40 bottle of synthetic pyrethroid simply never makes it to the gardening aisle at your local hardware store. Now let me tell you what happened when organic farmers in California started using capsaicin sprays in the early 2000s. By 2005, enough small-scale vegetable growers in the Central Valley had switched to pepper-based pest control that the California Specialty Crop Growers Association published a guidance document outlining application rates and timing. The document was distributed at a regional farming conference in Fresno. Within 6 months, 3 representatives from major pesticide manufacturers requested meetings with the association's board. The meetings were not hostile, they were framed as consultation. The pesticide companies wanted to help refine the recommendations. They had concerns about efficacy. They had questions about residue. They offered to fund follow-up research to validate the findings. The association declined the funding, and the guidance document remained in circulation. But here is what happened next. In 2007, the EPA updated its minimum risk pesticide exemption list under FIFRA Section 25B. That list defines which substances are considered safe enough that they do not require full pesticide registration. Capsaicin was already on the list. It had been since 1996. But in the 2007 update, the EPA added language requiring that any capsaicin-based product marketed as a pesticide must include a specific disclaimer about potential skin and eye irritation. That disclaimer requirement applied even to products that were nothing more than cayenne pepper mixed with water and soap. The disclaimer language had to appear on the label in a font size equivalent to the product name. For a home gardener mixing pepper spray in a jar, that requirement meant nothing. But for any small company trying to sell a pre-mixed capsaicin spray at retail, it meant their label now looked identical to synthetic chemical pesticides. The safety advantage disappeared visually. And without that visual distinction, consumers defaulted to the familiar brands. Sales of capsaicin-based sprays plateaued. They did not disappear, but they stopped growing. And the pesticide manufacturers went back to business as usual. I am not speculating about this. The meeting minutes from the 2005 CSGA conference are public record. The EPA label requirement change is documented in the Federal Register. This is not a conspiracy. It is regulatory capture. It is what happens when the industry that profits from a problem gets to help write the rules that define the solution. Now let me walk you through exactly how to make and use capsaicin spray, because the simplicity of it will make you angry. You need 3 things: cayenne pepper, water, dish soap. That is the entire formula. 2 tablespoons of cayenne pepper powder, 1 quart of water, 1 teaspoon of liquid dish soap. Mix the cayenne pepper into the water and let it sit for 30 minutes. The capsaicin is not water-soluble, but the prolonged contact allows enough of the compound to suspend in the liquid. After 30 minutes, add the dish soap. The soap acts as an emulsifier and a surfactant. It helps the capsaicin stick to plant leaves and insect bodies instead of running off. Shake the mixture vigorously. Pour it into a spray bottle. That is the entire preparation. Total material cost approximately 50 cents per quart. A commercial organic insecticide costs $8 to $12 for the same volume. Apply the spray directly to the leaves of affected plants. Focus on the undersides of leaves where aphids and whiteflies congregate. Spray until the surface is visibly wet but not dripping. You are not trying to drench the plant. You are trying to coat it with a thin layer of capsaicin that insects will contact when they attempt to feed. Reapply after rain. Reapply every 5 to 7 days during heavy pest pressure. The capsaicin does not persist the way synthetic chemicals do. It breaks down in sunlight within 48 to 72 hours. That sounds like a disadvantage until you realize it means 0 residue at harvest. You can spray in the morning and pick tomatoes that same afternoon. No waiting period, no rinsing required. The compound that repelled the insects is gone before you bring the fruit inside. One safety note, because it is not optional. Capsaicin will irritate your skin and eyes the same way it irritates insects. Wear gloves when mixing and spraying. Do not touch your face. If you get spray in your eyes, flush with water immediately and do not rub. The irritation is temporary, but it is real. Handle the spray with the same caution you would handle a jalapeno pepper, because chemically, that is exactly what it is. Now here is the part that the pesticide industry does not want you thinking about too carefully. The active ingredient in most home garden insecticides is a synthetic pyrethroid, permethrin, bifenthrin, cyfluthrin. These are laboratory-created molecules designed to mimic the structure of pyrethrin, a natural insecticide derived from chrysanthemum flowers. Pyrethrins have been used for pest control since the 1800s. They work, they are effective, and they are expensive to extract from flowers at commercial scale. So in the 1970s, chemical companies developed synthetic versions that were cheaper to manufacture. Those synthetic versions are what you buy at the hardware store today. But here is what the label does not tell you. Synthetic pyrethroids are broad-spectrum insecticides. They kill everything: aphids, beetles, caterpillars, bees, ladybugs, lacewings, parasitic wasps, spiders, and every other arthropod they contact. They do not distinguish between pest and beneficial. When you spray a synthetic pyrethroid on your tomato plants to kill aphids, you are also killing the ladybug larvae that eat aphids. You are killing the parasitic wasps that lay eggs in hornworm caterpillars. You are killing the predators that would have solved your pest problem naturally if you had given them time. And once those predators are gone, the pests come back faster because there is nothing left to keep them in check. The pesticide creates the dependency. That is not an accident. That is the business model. Capsaicin does not kill beneficial insects because beneficial insects do not chew on plant leaves. Ladybugs eat aphids. Parasitic wasps inject eggs into caterpillars. Lacewings consume soft-bodied pests. None of them feed on plant tissue. So when you spray capsaicin on a leaf, the predators are not affected. Only the herbivores, the insects actually damaging your plants, encounter the compound, and those insects leave without dying, which means they do not create selection pressure for resistance. Synthetic pesticides kill, and every generation of insects that survives produces offspring slightly more resistant to the chemical. Over time, the pesticide stops working, and you need a stronger formulation, or a different chemical, or a higher application rate. Capsaicin does not create resistance because it does not kill, it repels. An insect that walks away from a capsaicin-treated plant does not develop immunity, it just learns to avoid that plant, which is exactly what you want. Now let me tell you what this knowledge costs 50 cents to implement and $18 billion per year to suppress. The pesticide industry in the United States generates over $18 billion in annual revenue. That number is sustained by one operational assumption: that you will go back to the store every season because pests keep coming back. Ortho, Bayer, Bonide, Spectricide. These are not fraudulent products. The chemistry functions, but the active ingredients in the majority of home garden pesticides are synthetic versions of compounds that occur naturally in plants. They are selling you laboratory-manufactured capsaicin analogs and pyrethrin mimics at a markup between 20 and 100 times the cost of the natural source material. A 2-pound bag of cayenne pepper costs $6 and treats an entire garden for a full season. A 32-ounce bottle of Sevin ready-to-use costs $14 and covers roughly the same area for roughly the same duration. The difference is not efficacy, the difference is marketing budget. And what is marketed becomes what is normal, and what is not marketed becomes invisible, even when it works better. But there is a second layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Capsaicin does not just repel insects, it also has antifungal properties. In 2003, researchers at the University of Wisconsin published findings showing that capsaicin inhibits the growth of several common plant fungal pathogens, including powdery mildew and early blight. The mechanism is not fully understood, but the effect is measurable. Plants treated with capsaicin spray show reduced fungal infection rates compared to untreated controls, which means the same $3 bag of pepper that keeps aphids off your tomatoes is also reducing the likelihood of fungal disease. That is 2 problems solved with 1 application. No fungicide required, no additional cost. The Amish have known this for generations, not because they read university research, because they observed it. When you grow food without access to commercial chemicals, you pay attention to what works, and what works gets passed down. I want you to think about what it means that this information exists in peer-reviewed journals, in university extension publications, and in the oral tradition of one of the oldest continuous farming cultures in America, and yet almost nobody outside those circles has ever heard of it. That is not an accident. That is not a coincidence. That is the result of a market structure that rewards complexity and punishes simplicity. The 50-cent solution does not get promoted because it has no profit margin. It has no advertising budget. It has no shelf space at retail. So it vanishes from public knowledge 1 generation at a time until a gardener staring at aphid-covered roses types a search into Google and the first page of results is dominated by products that cost 30 times more than the cayenne pepper already sitting in their kitchen cabinet. You now know what the pesticide industry spent 70 years making sure you would not think to look for. Cayenne pepper, water, dish soap, 2 tablespoons, 1 quart, 1 teaspoon, shake, spray, wait 5 minutes. The insects leave. I want to know one specific thing from you. What pest problem in your garden has cost you the most money over the years? Leave that in the comments. Just the pest and the plant. I want to know what we